The following day, Pedro and Owen plunged into the vast ocean surrounding the island, their senses alive with the thrill of adventure. The vibrant underwater world was a feast for their eyes as they swam alongside colorful schools of fish and majestic sea turtles. The waters were so clear that they could see for miles, but the clarity also made it easier for Owen to spot something sinister lurking in the shadows. His heart racing, he saw two enormous great white sharks silently gliding towards them, their razor-sharp teeth glinting menacingly in the sunlight. Owen signaled Pedro frantically, pointing at the two great white sharks that glided with an ominous grace through the clear blue water. Pedro motioned for Owen to follow him, a confident smile on his face as he swam towards the creatures. Owen felt a chill run down his spine as he realized how close they were getting. Suddenly, the sharks seemed to sense their presence, and their behavior changed. They began to move in erratic patterns, as if agitated by the two divers invading their territory. With their heart racing and adrenaline pumping, Pedro and Owen tried to retreat as fast as they could from the agitated sharks. But it seemed like the predators had other plans in store. Suddenly, one of the sharks broke away from the group and charged towards Pedro like a missile, the force of the impact sending him spinning out of control. The sickening crack of bones echoed through the water as the shark slammed into Pedro's back, leaving him paralyzed and at the mercy of the ocean's currents. As the water swallowed him whole, Pedro's life hung in the balance. Pedro was helpless as the second shark made its move. Its mouth gaped wide open, and Owen could see the rows of jagged teeth as the shark charged towards Pedro. The shark lunged at Pedro with incredible speed, and Owen could hear the bone-crunching impact as it sunk its teeth deep into Pedro's shoulder. Blood gushed out from the wound as the first shark joined in, biting down on Pedro's leg with relentless force. The two beasts pulled in opposite directions, tearing through Pedro's flesh and bones like a pair of ferocious machines. The sound of snapping bones echoed through the water as the sharks ripped off Pedro's limbs, leaving behind a cloud of blood and dismembered body parts. Pedro's body convulsed in agony as the great white sharks mercilessly tore into his flesh. Piercing pain consumed him, and he realized his life was slipping away. He felt the cold embrace of the ocean as his body continued to freefall, the only sound the deafening roar of bubbles escaping his regulator. The water around him became a swirling vortex of red as the sharks ferociously ripped apart his body, leaving behind only scraps of torn flesh and blood-stained water. The scene of horror unfolded before Owen's eyes, and he was powerless to stop it. The two sharks were like monstrous predators, unrelenting and savage as they tore apart Pedro's body. Owen was rooted to the spot, frozen in terror at the sight of his friend's brutal demise. Eventually, he regained some semblance of control and began to swim away, his heart pounding at his chest. He could feel the shark's presence behind him, a dark and ominous force lurking in the depths of the ocean. Investigate, only to find that the reef was being stalked by a massive great white shark. Jan later reported that the beast must have been around 20 feet, which is the maximum length a great white can reach. They immediately backed up and went to tell the instructor, who pointed for them to surface. After they breached the surface, a few of the divers immediately panicked and started swimming towards the boat. But the instructor stopped them and said there was nothing to worry about. As long as they didn't disturb the shark, they were fine. Felix and Jan were calmed by this information, but the rest of the group did not feel comfortable remaining in the water, much less after the guide suggested that they swim to the shark to interact with it. Felix, Jan, and the instructor went for another dive while the rest of the group went to the boat, and with each passing second, the pair became more paranoid that the shark would attack them. But they figured that the experience would be worth the risk. As they approached the shark, Felix thought about how dead its black eyes looked, but they didn't seem threatening. They got close to it at the instructor's command and touched the shark, amazed at how rough the surface of its skin felt, even through the mesh of the wetsuit. It was covered in scars, most likely from previous battles for dominance with other sharks. The shark circled them a few times, and it seemed to be minding its own business. However, things changed when they noticed that it started getting uncomfortably close to Jan, which Felix signaled to the instructor, but he didn't respond. This irritated Felix, who quickly swam up to Jan and pulled him away. This caught the shark's attention. As though a switch flipped, the shark suddenly twisted in its trajectory and made a beeline toward Felix, sinking its teeth into his arm and flailing wildly, seemingly trying to rip it off. Felix's respirator immediately fell out of his mouth as he let out a scream that was muted by the water around him. The instructor and Jan immediately swam up to attempt to free Felix, but the shark was simply too strong. Before they knew it, the water was red with Felix's blood, and they could barely see anything. Jan, who was holding on to Felix, felt his friend float into his arms, as the shark shot away from them with a trophy in its mouth. Felix was unconscious by this point and losing a tremendous amount of blood, so Jan immediately started swimming up, clutching his friend by his side, with the instructor following close. When they breached the surface, the rest of the group on the boat was waiting with bated breath, as they didn't know what else to do. But two of them rushed to pull Felix out of the water. They managed to get him on the deck of the ship, and one of the divers went to get some cloth from her bag to tie off Felix's mangled arm. It was completely torn off at the elbow, with visible bone and sinew sticking out. Jan later remarked that it was no wonder that he passed out from the pain, as the injury was so horrific. The instructor rushed to the wheel of the boat and sped them towards the shore, alerting the Coast Guard about the situation, so told Sarah to stop the pursuit. Jake felt unease emanating from the shark's erratic behavior. Jake thought Sarah obliged his instruction to return to the boat, but Sarah was determined to get closer to the shark. The shark's sleek body glistened in the sun's rays, and Sarah was entranced by its deadly grace. The closer she got, the more she could feel the primal energy emanating from the predator. Jake frantically waved his arms, signaling Sarah to return to the boat's safety. But Sarah was entranced by the shark's hypnotic movements, lost in the wild beauty of the predator. Her fascination with the creature proved to be a fatal mistake. The shark launched toward Sarah with lightning-fast speed, its jaws gaping wide. Before she could scream, the predator clamped down hard on her leg, yanking her beneath the water's surface. The force of the bite was like nothing Sarah had ever experienced before. The shark's teeth sliced through her wetsuit, and she could feel the piercing pain in her leg, signaling the beginning of a terrifying fight for survival. As the water grew murky and dark, Sarah struggled to break free from the powerful grip of the shark's jaws. But the predator was too strong, its hold unrelenting. It dragged her deeper and deeper into the abyss, and Sarah knew that her chances of survival were slim at best. Her heart racing, her lungs burning, she fought with all of her might against the relentless force that threatened to claim her life. Jake saw the horrifying scene take place before his eyes. He knew he had to act fast if he intended to save Sarah. Jake's heart pounded with fear and adrenaline as he swam closer to the attack scene. The water was murky and filled with bubbles, making it difficult to see what was happening. He could hear Sarah's muffled screams and knew that time was running out. He pushed himself harder, his arms and legs pumping with all the strength he could muster. As he got closer, he saw the full horror of the situation. The shark's razor-sharp teeth were dug deep into Sarah's mangled leg, and blood was gushing like a river. She fought with all her might, but the predator's grip was too strong. Jake knew he had to act fast, or Sarah would be lost forever. Without hesitation, he lunged at the shark, grabbing its dorsal fin with all his might. The shark thrashed and jerked, trying to shake Jake off, but he held tight. He could feel the immense power of the predator beneath him, and his heart pounded in his chest as he struggled to keep his grip. Finally, with a burst of strength, Jake hit the shark's snout, shocking it with a jolt of pain, forcing its mouth open and freeing Sarah's leg. The shark recoiled and temporarily retreated to the depths of the sea. Jake and Sarah took this opportunity and immediately approached the waiting boat, leaving a She couldn't stop, but when Randall arrived, he was struck by its immense beauty. The cerulean waters of the ocean shimmered under the sun's rays. The coastline was a picturesque panorama of rocky cliffs and sandy beaches. The tranquil town was small, but it was clear that this place held great power, with a possibility of danger lurking just below the water's surface. Randall's excitement grew as he boarded the boat and set out towards the diving location. The cage was ready and waiting for him, and he couldn't wait to be lowered into the water. As the cage sank into the depths of the ocean, Randall's anticipation turned to fear. The water was murky, and he couldn't see far beyond the steel cage. The silence was deafening. and the only sound was the rhythmic breathing of the diving crew. Suddenly, a group of great white sharks began to circle the cage, their teeth glistening in the murky water as they attacked the steel pegs. Randall could feel his heart pounding in his chest as he watched them, wondering if the cage could withstand their attack. But as the sharks continued to circle, the cage remained sturdy, and Randall felt confident that nothing bad could happen. As the minutes ticked by, the tension grew palpable as the sharks kept circling the cage, their razor-sharp teeth bared in a menacing display. Randall and the crew felt a sense of relief when the sharks eventually stopped attacking the cage, only for their relief to quickly turn to confusion as they suddenly disappeared without a trace. In the murky waters, a thick layer of foam and bubbles made it difficult to see anything. But in the depths, Randall caught a glimpse of something that made his heart race with fear. A massive figure was moving towards the cage with deadly precision. It was coming fast, and there was nowhere to hide. As it approached, the figure became clearer, revealing itself to be a colossal great white shark. Its massive body dwarfed all other sharks they had seen before. Its scarred sides bore the evidence of countless battles, and its cold, dead eyes were fixed on the steel cage with an unerring focus. The crew and Randall watched in terror as the shark kept circling the cage, getting closer and closer with each pass. The atmosphere was thick with fear as they waited for what would happen next. The suspenseful silence was shattered when the shark disappeared suddenly into the depths of the ocean, leaving them all gasping for air. With the sudden appearance of the colossal great white shark, the crew of the diving expedition was thrown into a frenzy of fear and panic. They knew that they had to act quickly to save Randall's life. Without hesitation, they pulled on the rope that would lift the steel cage back to the surface. As they hauled it up, Randall could feel his heart pounding in his chest, and his body was shaking with fear. Just as he was about to breathe a sigh of relief, thinking he had made it out alive, the bottom of the cage was struck by a massive force. It felt like a powerful blow from a sledgehammer, and Randall was thrown off balance, his body jerking wildly in the water. He knew that something terrible was happening, and he could feel his fear growing with each passing moment. The sound of the impact was deafening, and Randall could feel his ears ringing. The water around him churned and frothed, and he knew that something was trying to break through the cage. His mind raced as he tried to imagine what kind of monster was capable of such a feat of strength. Randall's mind raced as he frantically scanned the murky waters. Randall's mangled remains down into the dark, abyssal depths of the ocean, far from the safety of the surface. It was a gruesome and unsettling sight, a grim reminder of the dangers that lurk beneath the waves. The attack was so sudden that the diving crew was not able to react accordingly. Randall's body was never found, and the story of the attack sent fear and terror to the diving community. It was a reminder that nature was unforgiving, and even the bravest and most experienced of thrill seekers were. The underwater world was their escape from the mundane, and they relished the chance to explore every nook and cranny. On a sunny day, the duo geared up with their diving gear, anticipation bubbling within them as they prepared to descend into the mysterious depths of the ocean. The water was crystal clear, revealing a stunning world beneath the surface. Justin and Damien exchanged excited glances, their eyes shining with the eagerness of explorers about to embark on a new adventure. With a splash, they submerged into the cool waters, the sensation of weightlessness enveloping them as they descended deeper into the abyss. The marine life greeted them with a mesmerizing display of colors, as if nature had painted a masterpiece just for them. Schools of fish danced around them, while corals swayed gracefully to an underwater symphony. As they swam further, Damien suddenly halted, his eyes widening in awe. Justin followed his gaze and gasped as he caught sight of a massive great white shark gliding towards them with stealthy grace. The shark's sleek body and rows of sharp teeth were a testament to its power and dominance in the underwater realm. Damien, an experienced diver, instinctively raised his dive knife, ready to defend himself. As Damien braced himself for a potential shark attack, he never expected it to happen so suddenly. In a flash of movement, the predator lunged at him with lightning speed, its razor-sharp teeth gnashing together with a deafening snap. Damien's heart pounded in his chest as he tried to dodge the beast's grip. But it was too late. The shark's powerful jaws clamped down on his leg with a bone-crushing force, sending a wave of excruciating pain through his body. As the water around them churned and frothed, Justin watched in horror as his friend fought for his life. Damien's face contorted in agony as he desperately tried to break free from the shark's grip, but the predator's unyielding hold only tightened with each passing moment. With a burst of adrenaline-fueled bravery, Damien drew his knife and plunged it into the shark's scaly hide, hoping to weaken its resolve. But the predator was relentless, attacking again and again with a ferocity that was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. As the struggle continued, the water around them turned crimson with Damien's blood, a macabre painting that seemed to mirror the violence unfolding before their eyes. Despite the pain and fear, Damien refused to give up, battling the shark with every ounce of strength he had left. But with each passing moment, his strength began to ebb, and the predator's grip began to tighten. In that moment, it seemed as though all hope was lost, and Damien's fate was sealed. Justin's heart pounded in his chest as he moved to intervene, but as if drawn by the scent of blood, another massive great white shark appeared out of nowhere. The two sharks circled Damien, their dark eyes fixed on their prey with an intensity that sent chills down Justin's spine. Damien fought with all his might, but the sharks were merciless in their attack. With a swift motion, one of the sharks lunged at Damien's torso, its serrated teeth tearing into his flesh. The water turned crimson as Damien's blood mixed with the salt water, creating a gruesome scene that played out in slow motion before Justin's eyes. He screamed, the sound muffled by the water as he watched in horror, unable to comprehend the nightmare unfolding in front of him. The second shark joined in the attack, tearing into Damien from the other side, ripping his body apart with brutal force. Damien's screams were silenced as the sharks tore him apart like a rag doll, leaving only shreds of his wetsuit and a trail of blood in their wake. Justin's mind went blank, paralyzed with shock and horror at the sight of his best friend being devoured by two apex predators. He tried to reach Damien, to save him, but the sharks were too fast, too furious, too ferocious. Justin's hands trembled, his entire body shaking with grief and helplessness. He could hear his own heartbeat thundering in his ears as he watched the gruesome spectacle unfold before him, unable to do anything to stop it. Minutes that felt like hours passed before the sharks finally retreated, leaving behind a trail of crimson in the water. Damien's lifeless body floated, disfigured and torn, a harrowing sight that Justin could never erase from his memory. The ocean that had once been a source of wonder and awe had turned into a nightmarish scene of carnage. In the shock and panic, Justin swam towards the shore with all his strength, his mind a whirlwind of emotions. The image of Damien being ripped apart by the two sharks replayed in his mind like a horror movie on a loop, each detail etched into his soul with searing pain. He reached the shore, stumbling onto the sand, his body and mind in a state of turmoil. In the aftermath of the tragedy, Justin was emotionally scarred for life. He suffered from vivid nightmares, reliving the gruesome scene of Damien's death every night. The local news was flooded with the story of how two sharks ripped a diver into pieces in front of his friend, reminding everybody of the volatile nature and ferocity of the creatures of the sea. Her heart pounded in her ear. that gushed blood into the ocean. Lisa felt her consciousness slipping away as the pain became too much to bear. Her vision blurred, and she struggled to stay awake, but eventually succumbed to the darkness. The guide's heart raced with adrenaline as he saw Lisa's body sinking rapidly into the abyss. With a burst of energy, he kicked his way towards her, determined to save her. But as he reached her, a sudden chill ran down his spine. From the murky depths emerged the same tiger shark, its massive jaws wide open, ready to strike again. The guide's heart pounded in his chest as he watched in horror as the shark bit off Lisa's other leg in a single swift motion. The guide's blood ran cold as he watched in horror as the massive tiger shark ripped off Lisa's limbs one after another, leaving her helpless and mutilated in its wake. He was frozen in fear, unable to process what was happening before his very eyes. The shark's powerful jaws snapped and tore at her flesh, its razor-sharp teeth sinking deep into her body, causing blood to cloud the water. As Lisa's body was being torn apart, the guide felt a sickening feeling in the pit of his stomach, knowing that he had failed to protect her. His mind raced with thoughts of what he could have done differently, but it was too late. The shark, having taken its fill, grabbed Lisa's lifeless carcass and dragged it down to the murky depths of the ocean, leaving the guide in a state of shock and disbelief. He felt helpless, his mind numb as he tried to process the tragedy that had just unfolded before him. The other tourists and members of the diving crew frantically reached out to the authorities, their voices trembling. The azure waters of the Caribbean Sea glimmered under the scorching sun, illuminating the vibrant corals and tropical fish that swam within. But beneath the surface, the true highlight of Shark Ray Alley was something else: the sharks. The nurse sharks were a sight to behold, with their smooth gray skin and majestic presence. These creatures were known for their gentle and serene demeanor, making them a popular choice for photo shoots. Laura had swam with them previously, and she felt completely at ease with their company. The way they glided through the water with effortless grace, their inquisitive eyes following her every move, made for an unforgettable experience. As the photo shoot was going smoothly and the crew was well ahead of schedule, Laura decided to take a dip in the tranquil waters, feeling the sun's warmth on her skin. The nurse sharks gracefully circled around her, as if performing an elegant ballet, creating a serene and peaceful atmosphere. Laura felt at ease as she moved through the clear turquoise water, admiring the vibrant coral and fish beneath her. It was a moment of pure bliss, a temporary escape from the chaos of the world. She was so confident in the docile nature of the nurse sharks that she let her guard down, unaware of the ominous presence lurking just beyond her vision. The tranquility of Shark Ray Alley was shattered in an instant. The water that was once so calm turned into a bloody red frenzy. Laura's water was palpable as Laura gasped for air, her heart racing with fear. She knew that the bull shark was still lurking somewhere in the depths below, biding its time before striking again. The quiet stillness of the ocean was shattered by the sounds of her ragged breathing, the only thing standing between her and the ruthless predator. Laura braced herself for the inevitable, knowing that the next attack could be fatal. Laura desperately dragged herself through the water, her injured leg throbbing with every movement. The once calm sea around her now felt like a death trap, as she sensed the shark's presence closing in on her. She could hear the creature's powerful strokes through the water, its sharp senses locked onto her scent. Laura's heart raced as she realized the futility of her efforts. The shark was coming for her, and there was nothing she could do to escape. She stopped moving and closed her eyes, steeling herself for the inevitable attack. Suddenly, a massive shadow eclipsed the sun, and Laura's eyes flew open, just in time to see the shark launch itself out of the water. Its body was a blur of sleek, muscular power, its jaws wide open to reveal a terrifying arsenal of teeth. The shark was a force of nature, beautiful in its deadly grace. The jaws of the monstrous shark were only inches away from Laura's face when a sharp object pierced through the predator's open mouth, causing it to let out a piercing screech. The spear gun had landed with a resounding thud, and with one swift motion, had claimed the life of the frenzied beast. The water was stained with blood of both predator and prey, and the lifeless body of the shark bobbed up and down in the waves, a stark contrast to its former fearsome form. Laura's body went limp, her mind unable to process what just happened. She floated in the water like a lifeless doll, her eyes staring blankly at the red-stained waves around her. Suddenly, a pair of strong hands gripped her shoulders, pulling her back to reality. It was Johnny, the cameraman, who had saved her from the jaws of death. He hoisted Laura onto the boat, her body shivering from the shock. The sound of the shot that killed the shark echoed in her ears, and she knew that she owed her life to Johnny's quick thinking. However, the memory of the terrifying incident would haunt her for the rest of her days, a reminder of the fragility of life in the wild. The rough, gray skin, the powerful tail propelling it forward, the rows of teeth waiting to tear her apart. Despite her fear, she couldn't help but feel a strange sense of wonder at the creature's beauty. But that feeling quickly dissipated as she realized the danger she was in. Emily's heart raced as the bull shark pack closed on her. She could feel their hot breath on her skin and smell the metallic scent of blood and sea salt. Their dark, unblinking eyes locked on hers, and she knew she was in trouble. She kicked her legs frantically, trying to swim away, but the sharks were too fast. They circled around her, their fins cutting through the water rapidly. Emily's mind raced as she struggled to devise a plan, but her thoughts were jumbled and panicked. She could feel the water churn around her as the sharks closed in for the kill. As Emily struggled to escape the impending attack, her screams echoed across the deserted beach. Her heart pounded in her chest, and her lungs burned as she gasped for air. The sharks had clamped onto her limbs, pulling her down with each passing moment. Emily could feel the rough texture of their skin against her skin, and the searing pain of their teeth sinking into her flesh. The salt water stung her eyes, making it difficult to see as she fought for her life. As the sharks pulled her deeper into the ocean, Emily realized the gravity of the situation. She was surrounded by these relentless predators, and no one was around to save her. Her friends on the shore heard her cries and rushed to the water's edge. They could see the sharks circling, their fins cutting through the water. They called out to Emily, but there was no response.